Let's begin. Brisket is truly nothing to be afraid of, my friends. And whether you've trimmed 1,000 or this is your first one, first, I promise you'll pick up at least a half a tip or a tip or two at minimum, and at maximum, you might walk away from this thing and really feel good about this. So the biggest thing when it comes to trimming a brisket is you want to follow a flow. This is the decal. The first thing I do when I'm approaching a brisket, this is my first step, is I want to make sure that the underneath side of my brisket, which is the side we're looking at, which is the decal side, I want to make sure that the underneath is as flat as humanly possible. I'll talk about why we want it flat a little bit later in the video, but just keep that in your head that every trim, every cut that I make is to maintain the aerodynamics of the brisket. I remove that decal. The reason that I remove the decal, like I said, is to make sure that the brisket is as flat as humanly possible. The second reason that I want to trim the decal out is because that's not going to render. It's not. It's too thick. If you cut the decal in half, you can see there is no meat. It is just white, hard fat. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about the top of the brisket. Opposite the decal side is your mohawk. What is a mohawk? In short, it's just a big hunk of the brisket that we do not want. Let's talk about removing a mohawk. There's a couple ways to do this. The most important thing that you realize when you do this is that your inclination is to do this. Because if you've never trimmed a brisket, you're going to think, oh my gosh, I don't want to take this whole thing out. You're going to be scared. Guys, do not be scared. Listen to me right now. This is the most fail-proof cut you will make on this entire brisket, only second to the decal. You cannot go wrong removing this mohawk, so just trust yourself. I'm just going to get right underneath. I'm going to pull this up, see what I'm looking at. You can see this shark fin, and I'm just going to go right underneath this mohawk. Now, what I want you guys to see is that my knife is at this, I don't know, is this a 45-degree angle? I have no idea. What my knife is not doing is it's not tipped up, and my knife is not tipped all the way down. My knife is right at the angle of the brisket, like so. Now, when you get to the end, you do not want to go vertically out. You want to go down and around. This is going to help with our aerodynamics. So we're going down and I'm bringing my knife round, long stroke out. There you go. Now, in order to make this thing look pretty now, we want to do the next stage of this process. This is what I call my leading lines. This is the next step. We're just working through the flow. What you're going to do is you're going to find the most outer edge of your point. The point is round, or at least it should be. The most outer edge on your mohawk side is where you're going to start your leading line. And I'm literally going to bring this cut all the way down. That's a leading line. We'll talk about why we do that. Nice and slow. Don't rush it. That's a leading line. Beautiful, beautiful piece of meat. This is the first real look that we have into our brisket. From here, it's time to start working this fat cap. I want to tell you guys something. The fat cap, it's one of the most essential parts of a proper brisket cook. We don't want to remove too much, but we also don't want to keep too much. So opposite the mohawk side now, we have this big hunk of fat right here. This fat in here, which is underneath the decal, see decal here, the fat on top of the decal typically is it's the thickest fat on our brisket, and it's some of the hardest to render at this thickness. So all we want to do is just slowly start to work this down. Now, I like going behind this hump of fat just in the beginning because you're able to kind of judge it. You're not doing too much. You're not making any scary cuts. Now, there's a thing called scalping a brisket, which I'm likely to do on this cut. And if I do, we'll talk about it. But in an effort not to scalp this brisket, I'm just slowly taking my knife one section at a time, just working this fat cap off. What you can't see is my knife is not too high and my knife is not too low. My knife is laying flat against this brisket and I'm just going in just enough to pull out the amount of fat that I want. Do you guys notice how I'm literally working this one section? That's what I was talking about earlier. The biggest mistake is folks start chasing the brisket. We're working in quadrants. We did the underneath decal. We did the opposite side mohawk. Now I'm just going back this way. I'm just working in quadrants. That way I don't have to overthink it. All this is going to come. But right now we're not worried about it. Now you might be wondering, Marcus, how do we know when we've trimmed enough? It's a great question, my friend. Firstly, feel. You got to start trusting your feel. If I feel this down in here, this is a little bit more pillowy, not as thick as up here. That's first. I can just feel around the brisket where the fat's lighter. You get that over time, but the only way to get that is to start trying to understand the feel. So feel first. I can feel, like right in here, I can feel the waxiness of this fat. We're looking for a more pillowy fat. So that's first, is feel. Second is I can make a slit, which I'm not going to do, but I can literally make a slit into the brisket, open it, and just see how much is in there. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's move on. From here, we have the rest of this brisket to take the fat cap off of. What I like to do is I start back in the point. Each brisket's going to be different. I'm feeling, constantly feeling. I can feel in here, this is waxy, it's hard, there's a lot of this fat in here. I'm going to start at the top of this brisket and just take this all the way down. If you scalp it, that's totally fine. Just, well, if I scalp this, I'll try to show you how I recover a scalp. I showed it in one of my other videos. The goal, obviously, is not for me to try to scalp this, but if I do, I'll show you guys how to troubleshoot it. But all I'm doing is just taking the high ridges off of this fat cap. I'm not going too deep in there, guys. I'm just taking the high ridges off, constantly feeling. You'll notice in each brisket, right at around the midway point, typically in here, as it goes down into the lean, this fat is normally already about 1/4 of an inch. If you try to make these same cuts that I'm doing, these kind of deeper cuts in and around the lean side, you're typically going to scalp it because there's just more fat on this outer edge here. So keep that in mind. You see how I just checked that? That's a good example. I noticed that my knife just felt a little too deep in there. Rather than continuing to cut, I immediately stop and I opened that up and I just was checking. I was checking to see, did I scalp it? Because if I did, I can undo the scalp versus me just hacking that whole thing out. And you can already see this is starting to get a lot more pillowy. Another way you can trim this, guys, I'm going to flip it towards you and risk totally botching this thing so you can see. But another way you can trim is if you don't want to go all the way down the brisket, the same way that we were doing this edge, just start about 2/3 of the way into the brisket and just start doing that same thing here and then go down here and do the same thing. Different strokes for different folks, but you can also do that because it's going to allow you to do that same pinch thing. It's going to allow you to do that here too. And as you can see, I'm pinching this. This is fat that needs to be removed. Can you see that hump? That's fat. Now, what you do not want to do is say, oh, look at all that fat and go underneath it and try to gouge it out. You want to take the top couple centimeters off of that and move slowly. So all I'm going to do now is continue. This is normally how I do it, is I cut towards me. See what I'm doing? I'm just getting underneath. And I try to move, I really do. I try to move within the same kind of 2 to 3 inch radius rather than doing this and doing this and doing this. I'm just moving my way down towards the outer edge. All right, so this looks good. This looks good so far. It's not totally there. We're gonna get it a little bit more pretty, but we're working through. I wanna talk about what's happening here, because as we get closer to this lean towards the end, what we do on this other leading line is important. So what I do, as you saw, I was just cutting this out, and as I get to this lean side, I'm going down and round, and I'm flattening this out just on this one corner until I get it where I want. And what I try to do personally is, the closer that I get to the edge of this lean, the more meat actually that I try to cut out, because I want to expose just a little bit. I just want to see the color change, the hue of it change. This is getting real pillowy there. I'm getting close. There it is. You see that? It's just barely there, because what I do now is I snip this out just ever so slightly. Press this out and I snip it like this. Now, you see how that just exposed just the meat right there. This is the lean. I didn't continue this cut all the way down. I just took out just what I needed right in there. And then the cool thing is that the way that we trimmed it, it's just nice and even, and that fat kind of rolls off rather than sticking straight out. So it's looking really good. All right, let's round this out. Now, we need to do what I call a QC check. So just a quality assurance check around the brisket. Make sure that fat's where we want it. So I'm just feeling where I didn't trim. Notice the difference in fat. See this reddish, more saturated hue? And then opposite of that, it's just nice, pillowy, and white. That's because this had so much fat. We had to even it out. Now it's even from this side to that side. That's even. So this cow, thank you, cow. You gave us fat that we did not need to trim. Left that in there. I'm feeling all around. Do I feel any waxy? That's what I'm looking for. Guys, trust your years on this earth. Like, you've been around earth long enough to know what wax feels like. This fat, tallow, it's used for candles. It's used for literally candles. It feels like a candle. That's all you're trying to remove. Gosh darn, that's good. That is a good tip. You're feeling for candle-like texture. And if you don't have it, that means you're doing good. All right, let's make it aerodynamic, and then we're gonna do some last kind of final touches. A trick that you'll see some barbecue restaurants do, because they make sausage at volume, is they actually come higher up on the brisket, close. You see how this is getting thicker. The further back we go, it gets thicker. They actually come back, and sometimes they'll come back in and around like right in here, and they'll hack that whole thing off. The reason they do that is because they'll pull just a few lean slices, and they're juicier in here because they're closer to the point. So they'll pull some of these lean slices, and then they flip it and they go almost immediately into their point slices. And they can do that because they take a lot of this out. I don't have restaurant money. I would like to serve as much brisket as possible. So I'm going to leave this. I'm coming up just an inch or two, and I'm just going to take that out. That's going to give us a better head start. See, it's already, see that? It's already a little thicker. It's not perfect, but it's not as thin. See, this is what we removed. So see where my finger is just a little thinner. Now we got a little bit more thickness. Now here's what we're gonna do. You see how this is, where am I? There I am. You see how this is just, there's like nothing there. But the higher you go up, the thicker it goes. What we're gonna do is we're gonna find where it gets right in the thickness that we want, and we're gonna do the following. We're gonna take this triangle out. Make sure your brisket now is fully pressed out, fully flattened out. And now I'm connecting the two thickest points. It's thickest here on the lean, and it's thickest here on the point. And I'm taking it. Now you see what we just did? This is literally even. It's like as even as it could be all the way around now. That's gonna ensure a more consistent cook. Now what we need to do to make it aerodynamic is we need to take one more triangle. That's it, nothing crazy. One more triangle. Press it out, press it out. Guys, if it's your first time, don't do this hatchery. I know it looks sexy. It looks good. You wanna take it out. No idea what those sound effects were. But yeah, just woosah. Press it out. We have our little triangle right where this bends. It's going to start there and it comes out and then it bends again. We're just going to follow the curvature just like that. See? Just making little tiny, see that, guys? Beautifully round. Now we got some more sides to do. Now, you see how it's round, but we got a little sharp part. We like the thickness here, so all we're doing is just completing the roundness. We need the same wrap over here. See this? We don't want that. So we're going to do the same exact thing. Remember, this is the thickest side of our lean. We are not removing this. We're not. Sorry, I'm getting all fired up. I freaking love barbecue and I love teaching. I hope this is helpful. I don't know how long I'm going, but hopefully you're following along. This is our thickest part of our brisket now. So we're just trying to keep the aerodynamicness. One more triangle. Where's my next triangle? I'd say this is a little guy. Little tiny triangle there. Little tiny triangle there. And we got one more here. You see that? You can barely see it. That little guy. I'm a perfectionist, so I gotta take it. And you see how I'm constantly pressing out. Now all I'm doing is I'm laying my knife vertically flat on the outside of the brisket, and I'm just taking this sashimi meat, just that tartare meat. That's all I want. Just taking that out to make it, you know, nice and sexy, I guess. Just take the tartare. There we go, folks. Just underneath now. Touching this up. And that is the world's skinniest brisket, but it's cooked. Or it's cooked. What am I saying? As the kids say, it's cooked. That would not be a good thing. No, it's trimmed. It's done. This is done. At this point in time, you're going to feel inclined to do a lot of things like mess with it. Do not mess with it. If you got to this stage in the process, your brisket is done. The reason I made this video is because I wanted to make a video that I would have loved to have had 10, 15 years ago when I was trying to figure out this whole barbecue thing. I have trimmed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brisket in my life. And what you just saw was just many years of trial and error and messing up and mistakes to just get relatively proficient at trimming a brisket. Guys, if you're new to the channel, I'm not gonna ask you to do anything. I never do. If you're new to the channel, I just ask that you enjoy yourself while you're here. And if it's not your first time here, welcome back, family. You know the deal. Give me a hug, virtual hug. That's so weird, but I'm hugging you. Meet and greet. Over and out.